Welcome to 60 Minutes with a Woman, the podcast where we sit down with remarkable women. In each episode, we dive into their journey, the challenges, the triumph, and the lessons that shape them. Get ready for raw conversations, inspiring stories, and actionable insights to fuel your own success. Tune in because every woman's story deserves to be heard. Welcome to 60 Minutes with a Woman. Today, again, we have an incredible guest, Tamara Nall. I'm going to go ahead and introduce you. Tamara, you have a doctorate in machine learning, data science, and you are a trailblazer in emotionally intelligent technology. But you did not stop there. Recently, you have initiated a true wave of change as the founder of Junia. JN, which is the feminine equivalent of junior. It's for daughters named after their mothers. With Junia, you are creating a lasting legacy of matriarchal honor, representation, and lineage. I have many questions for you. Welcome.
Thank you, Sarah. I'm so happy to be here and honored that you would have me on your platform. So thank you so much. I'm looking forward to this discussion.
Tell us more about who you are, where you grew up, and what were your early influences.
Sure. So I am, as Sarah mentioned, Dr. Tamara Nall. And when people ask me who I am, I always just tell them I'm just number one human. I'm a daughter, I'm a sister, I'm a wife, I'm a bonus mother. I am so many things that make up who I am. And I grew up in most of my time in Bessemer, Alabama, which is close to Birmingham, Alabama, and then Lithonia, Georgia, which is close to Atlanta, Georgia, in a very, very humble family. I am a preacher's kid. So, yes, my father was a minister. I grew up in the church and spent a lot of my time in the church. That's where I did my homework. That's where I slept and took naps because they were always on the road, he and my mother. And we grew up with a lot of love for each other. So it was my mother and my father, as well as my sister, who's 2 years younger than I am. And so there was a lot of laughter in our household and a lot of love. And I was always told that I could do anything that I put my mind to. So they always said, if you want to do something, just go for it. If you don't do it, you're already at no. So if you're already at no, even if you try, you might get a yes or you might get a confirmed no, but you won't know until you try. I was also taught that education is really important, that can't be taken away from you at all. And I would say the people who influenced me the most, the obvious, my parents and their upbringing, which they were very strict, but cool at the same time. I could talk to them about any topic, but they were very strict about curfews and who we could hang out with and stuff like that. But if I had to think about, I have some mentors that I'm going to describe and not name. And then I have some that I'm going to name. So the ones that I'm going to name came from when I worked in consulting at Booz & Company, which was the commercial side of Booz Allen Hamilton, a major global consulting firm. And the three people that influenced me the most were Reggie Van Lee, Gerald Adolph, and Carla Elrod. They made sure that they were in the boardrooms advocating for me and making sure that I got the right assignments so I could develop on my path to partner. And they were the ones that would close the door and give me feedback that other people would never tell me.
Wow.
One example, Carla Elrod, for instance, I grew up where you always had to say, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, yes, sir, no, sir. But once I moved to New York and started working for a consulting firm, I was saying that. And she pulled me into her office and slammed the door and said, stop saying that, because that means that you are demoting yourself when you are working among colleagues. So get rid of that and just say yes, no. So I did that immediately and I did see a difference. And nobody would have told me that but her.
Yes.
And so you always need people, particularly women, we need those individuals who can kind of give us that advice. And then people that I won't name, but the stories, and you can pick them. You can put your own name by them, whether they're celebrities, political people, whomever. It's people who have built something out of nothing and give you like real life examples, or at least stories that you can look at to actually be inspired by. And there are plenty of those, from rappers, who started with nothing and then, built an enterprise and became entrepreneurs. So, yeah, my influences were quite vast.
And this is what we want to do with 60 Minutes with a Woman. It's now you will tell your story and influence somebody positively, because this is your story. It's your own, and you're pushing through and you're making your dreams come true. And you have an amazing education because you put your mind into it. And this is exactly real life, real story that we need to put more out there. And this is why I appreciate you sitting here with me today. It's amazing. And I appreciate the fact that you were exposed to people who valued your presence in the room. I adore the fact that you had this kind of environment and you were able to thrive in it, because this is lacking enormously in many industries. So, this is shout out to people who uplifted you at the time where you really needed it. We need more people like this, absolutely. And you went in machine learning, right? So you went in IT and technology. What drew you to this field?
I feel like, and I thought about it, all of my degrees are either business or engineering. So I thought about it, I was like, wow, okay. So I have an undergrad in business, I have an MBA, and then I have an undergrad in engineering, and then I have a doctorate in engineering. And I have always liked the sciences, computer science, medical science, anything science oriented. I love that. So I think in terms of my degrees, I picked them because it was strategic. I
Yes.
felt that if I had the business aspect and the technical aspects, then I could always find a job if I needed one. And I found that I was able to get staffed on projects when I worked for booze that a lot of people weren't able to be staffed on, because there was always the strategic people and the technical people, and they could not talk to each other.
Okay.
And so they would staff me on these projects because I knew how to speak the technical, scientific language, and then I knew how to speak the strategic business, non-technical language. So they would bring me in when they needed someone that could speak both and put it like in layman terms that both sides could do it.
You were the translator between both.
Yes, translator. Yes, that is a very one word to describe what I said. Absolutely, I was a translator, and I feel that even now with the onset. I mean, we're past the onset, but this high focus on AI, you're always going to need people that can translate requirements in a meaningful way,
Yes.
right? And so I always felt that a technical background and a non-technical background worked for me. And then in terms of my passion and discovering it, I actually first discovered computer science and sciences when I realized that so much of the world is powered by what I call tiny explosions, right?
Okay.
It's those invisible moments where atoms collide or code executes or a single idea transforms into innovation. I remember even growing up as a child in the kitchen. I mean, we grew up poor and we didn't often have a lot, but my mother would open up the cabinet, put on that skillet, or heat up the oven, and then you have these heat collisions going on, right? So you took something from a cabinet or from something simple from the refrigerator, and then she would create a feast out of nothing. But what provided that? It was those chemical reactions that was, working with the grease she used, so even simple as that. Some people might say, okay, now that's pushing a little bit, but that is what influenced me a lot. And I feel that it really fascinated me that you literally can change the world with science, whether it's through cures for diseases or algorithms or mathematical breakthroughs. And it was always that curiosity that evolved into a love where I felt logic meets creativity and then eventually entrepreneurship and then being able to scale at a global level. So that's really how I got into it. It started with my mother's kitchen and then just went from there.
Well, that's a beautiful story. Thank you for sharing so much, by the way. But you still are gifted because not everybody can pick on certain things and see the magic behind it, and admire science in a sense where it's omnipresent in our everyday life. So you already had this awareness as a young child, and this is very special. But you are very special, and we're going to talk more about
Oh,
that.
for sure.
Obviously, tell me just one thing for the students out there, because you make it sound very easy to study what you want to study and get all those degrees. How did you push through with your education and just staying motivated and studying and getting all the degrees up to a doctorate?
It sounds easy, but it was not. I mean, when I was at Emory with my, getting my BBA and then moving to Georgia Tech, I mean, Georgia Tech, people underestimate Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech is hard. When I was at Emory, my electives were computer science 1 and 2 and physical chemistry and chemical engineering 1. Like those were the things I had to take as a prerequisite. It was not easy, but I found my tribe. I feel that all students, there's some students who are like, oh, I'll figure this out myself. And there's some pride or ownership to doing it by yourself. Absolutely not. I took advantage of every resource, every free tutoring session that came through, the women's organization or minority organization or alumni that were coming back and giving. I found my tribe in terms of other students who whom I studied with. I went to the professor's office afterwards if I had questions. Now that meant I couldn't party all the time on the weekends. I had to
Yes.
get ahead for my test so I could come up with my list of questions as I did practice tests, etc. before, and then I would party after the test. Um, but I've always been very strategic, but you can't do anything without connections. And another thing, particularly in engineering, is it's about the curve. So as long as you stay above the curve, you can get a 10 out of 100 on it. And if everybody else got like lower or the same, you still did well. So I always made sure I understood where the curve was so that I could ride that curve. And I probably shouldn't be saying this. And if there are parents out there, I'm not going to say, my parents didn't pressure me to make good grades at all. So I'm kind of dumbfounded sometimes about how I got good grades because it wasn't like you have to do it. Probably because I didn't want to disappoint my dad. That probably stemmed from it. But they never said, oh, you had to, be on the honor roll. I just did it. But for all students out there, find your tribe, take advantage of the resources, and build your Rolodex of connections. Because there are a lot of people who are applying for jobs, and even more now because we have so many layoffs going on. But if you not only apply to a job, but you find somebody in your network that works there that can make a referral for you, pretty much every job that I got ended up ending based on someone vouching for me. I never apply for just a random job online or something. I always try to put together the relationship map to try to get me that job. And I mean, it even happens with my company. People will reach out and say, oh, my son needs an internship or something. I'm more likely to tell my recruiting manager to look at that one versus a cold one that might come in. I mean, there are some hiring, but I would just say try to build your relationship base and don't wait until you need something. Try to deliver something or give something. If like Sarah, if I know that you're interested in finding good guests for your podcast, then before I have an ask for you, I might send you some names of some. So that way, when my ask eventually comes, at least there's been a warm relationship that has expanded since then.
Oh my gosh, that's such a valuable lesson. Honestly, I'm hoping that we'll get some parents or students that are going to listen to this part, which is normally not planned in the podcast, but I love that we took this turn because I wish somebody could have told me that back in the day. So basically, sacrifices are just the base of studying, right? You can't go to every party. You have to sacrifice some, build your network at school. Don't try to fit in or be cool. Just make sure you're connecting with everybody and going after school. Ask for help. Find your village. Find your tribe. Make sure you're supported around and all over. So you're making sure that you're getting what you're supposed to be getting to succeed.
Mm-hmm.
And then when it comes to work, you already built that tribe or found that tribe. So there you go. Now you can apply for internship. And although it's not your dream internship, you got to start somewhere and then you'll make it to the top, slowly but surely. And I love the fact that you brought that for a younger generation, especially because you are very successful. And I remember during exams, I couldn't help but think to myself, oh, Lord, how am I going to go through this? And and I remember talking to my mom, and she wasn't really helpful because she was like, actually, you just got to study by heart. Make sure you know everything. And I was like, yeah, have you seen my, what I need to study by heart? So
Exactly. And I'm not saying don't party. I partied, but I was strategic about I'm not going to go before I have an exam. I'm going to party to celebrate after I finish the exam.
That's right. That's right. You celebrate the success, right? You celebrate even the effort, but you've got to you got to work, and that's just the way it is. That's amazing. And not only you were successful at school and at work, but you also had this entrepreneur mindset. And I mean, we can hear it from the way you grew up. You were strategic, like you mentioned, about setting up goals for yourself as a young person, and this translated later on in your life. So tell us more about this entrepreneur mindset that you have.
Yeah. So to be fully honest, I became an entrepreneur. I've been an entrepreneur since I was in my single digit of age. Primarily because my parents only gave up. First of all, they didn't really believe in allowance because they said you have room and board. So that's your allowance. And I just had things I wanted to buy. And if I'm not getting allowance, or if they give me a quarter for every A or a dollar for every, I think they eventually promoted up to $1 for every A, it still wasn't enough. So I'm like, I got to make some money. So actually, my sister and I mean, we had everything from we babysat, we sold lemonade, you named it, we did it. We
That's
even,
awesome.
my mother took us on a trip to the local library, and we did a little field trip, and we wrote down notes. And my parents required us to read, and so we had all kind of books. So we cut up little manila folders and put it in there, and then we let children in the neighborhood, our kids, our friends in the neighborhood, check them out. And I would love it when they were late, because then we could charge late fees when they didn't return the books. But the real thing in my life that made me an entrepreneur was my father was a human resource manager and an auditor for a meat packing company. And he was laid off. And I found that our lifestyle changed drastically. I mean, there was a point where we couldn't even have meat. We couldn't afford a lot of things. But my friends whose parents were entrepreneurs, their lifestyle didn't change, or at least I didn't visibly see their lifestyle change. So at the time, I didn't even know what an entrepreneur was, but I knew that's what I wanted to be. And then later, as I learned about what it was, I'm like, wait a minute, I can create my own destiny. I get paid on how hard I work or how strategic I am with relationships, or, and that versus working for someone and then eventually telling me, sorry, you don't have a job, didn't sit well with me. It was putting too much of my destiny in someone else's hands.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew I was going to be an entrepreneur. And in fact, I made my first 5 figures at 12 because I presented to my dad an opportunity to to sort invoices when he took me into his office one day. And I'm like, what are all these boxes? And he explained. And so I put together a pitch to him and his supervisor. And it took several years to get 5 figures, but I hired my sister. We don't agree whether or not I fired her or she quit. But I just know she stopped work because she was like, oh my gosh, the invoices never end. And they ship meat globally. So there were like
Wait, how old were you?
When I hit the 30,000, making 30,000, I was 12.
You were 12 years old?
I was 12 years old.
What kind of story is this? You need a movie about your life.
Yes, but it took years, and then my dad helped me pay for taxes and all that kind of stuff. He helped with that, but it was just a need. And I remember my sister saying, "This is too chaotic. This is too unorganized," because my dad had a red and white pickup truck, and he would bring boxes of invoices home. And then after we finished our homework, we would then sort them and put them in order. And on the weekends, he would take us into the office and we would file them. And so my sister had a hard time dealing with that because it never ended. And I remember telling her, "Hello, if they were organized, they wouldn't need us. Chaos means money." So,
You were a little genius.
oh, thank you.
No, really.
So it's around chaos, and chaos can even be defined as like gaps in the market. Where are their needs? And when people ask me my superpower, I really believe I have two. One is I can find a need and commercialize it. I mean, I love that. And then number two, I have a strong sense of emotional intelligence, which a lot of people I find don't have. I can read a room. I can look at someone or listen to someone and say, "Ooh, that isn't resonating. Let me pivot a little bit." I mean, my friends often tell me, I'll tell them, "Ooh, I don't know if we can trust that person." And they'll ask why, and then I'll be right. I'm right. And so a lot of that comes from I love reading and reading blogs and reading articles and watching documentaries I, and because that's where you get your ideas. I love looking at other industries that have nothing at all to do with mine, just so that I can get insights from them and then use that into my own way of thinking. I guess I treat life like a case study. Oh, there's this situation, and
There's a
yeah,
lot of analysis involved,
right,
and it's just not, you're not living life without purpose.
right.
It's
Mm-hmm.
you can read a room, you can read a situation, you can analyze your environment. This is FBI type of requirement.
I actually did try to interview in college for FBI and CIA, and I was rejected. So
I mean, they're lost for real.
I was rejected. But yeah, so that's how I got to entrepreneurship. It was the fact that our lifestyle changed. And I'm not saying everybody can be an entrepreneur. There are people who we need employees too for corporations because then you don't have customers. But even if you're working for a company, try your best to be intrapreneurial. Like if you're working on a project, think out the box. Just don't give them what you always give them. Try to create and infuse innovation to make yourself needed.
Yes.
And so that's kind of where I got that. But I just have a curiosity on life. I love people. I love knowing random facts. I get some emails every day about random facts. Like I was telling my husband the other day, "Do you know that carrots weren't orange originally?" It's just like little stuff.
They
And
aren't? What? I didn't
no,
know.
they did not. They started as purple.
Okay.
Yeah, they started as purple and I think on the kind of whitish yellow track. And then over the years they evolved towards orange.
That's incredible. I had no idea. It's like I feel that this went from a podcast to a mastermind. Like, seriously. And when you mentioned also that so you love fun facts and you are a serial entrepreneur, and what kind of business did you invest into?
So right now I have I would say three investments. Two of them are hotels. So I invest in hotels because I love to travel and I'm like, I might as well invest in something that I really like. And that's a recommendation. Like invest in something that you're passionate about,
Exactly.
not necessarily like the latest trends. I know at some point a lot of people invested in crypto, but and then didn't sell. Now if you invested and then sold, you're probably really good. But so hotels because it's tried and true and I'm passionate about it and I love me a good hotel, even though our house is like a hotel. And then the second is I co-founded and invested in a company called Rely AI. So that's RELIAI.app. And it is a 24/7 avatar life companion. So we are in the testing. We're calling our inner circle testing now. Then we're going to go to beta testing and then we're going to launch. And basically, we have four different segments, but the first are divorcees, where we provide all kinds of assistance from financial planning and expense management to co parenting, scheduling,
Wow.
to even communication conflict resolution. Meaning, you might want to say, oh, I wish he would fall off the face of the earth. And then our app is going to say, well, maybe you shouldn't say that, and then give you suggested language, and then you can choose which one you want to use to send. And this will help you once you get after during. We want it to be a part of your life forever. So we're coming with the desktop and the mobile app soon. It'll be on wearables, and it will be a part of your life as you begin to date. Let's say you're dating 5 different people. It's going to keep up with the 5 people. It's going to tell you their favorites. It'll automatically order flowers or chocolates or plan a trip or order your groceries. And then, as we get into life's transition, which is hard, my mother passed away 10 years ago. So didn't think I would be there so quickly. But to help you with helping your parents and your children going to college. So it is going to be your life's companion. So I'm very much invested in that. And then people send me deals all the time for me to invest in. And so I'll consider, but right now, 3 investments, 2 are in hotel, and then 1 in the 24/7 avatar.
And you are still working as a
With the
computer
leading niche?
science. Yes, sorry.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
So basically, my main company that I've had now for 18 years is the Leading Niche. We are a federal contractor, and we provide data analytics, research, and IT to federal agencies. And yes, the good news is, which I tell people, at the right time, and the business will tell you when. See, I believe your business, it has its own spirit, it has its own soul. It talks to you. And so when things get hard, okay, maybe I need to hire. Maybe I need to cut these costs, whatever it is, it will tell you. And so I have a very strong team. It runs without me, it grows without me. As we talked before, Sarah, I even have my own podcast where I feature founders who have AI leading technologies. I have a team to help me, edit it. So I delegate. You can't do anything well if you do it all yourself. So I
Absolutely.
delegate, and I consider it job creation, job employment, and it allows me to focus on the things that I really want to focus on, which are all of it. But like Junia, this new movement that we'll talk about soon. So I do have that main company. I have that. I have the hotel investment company. I have a production company that produced my Wall Street Journal USA Today bestseller that's still getting awards. Then Rely AI, I have that one as well. In 2023, I started a nonprofit. We just won our first huge grant to do work in Illinois to help returning residents to give back to communities. And so I have teams of people that help with that too.
I mean, when you said you were a serial investor and entrepreneur, you didn't lie. It's incredible that you were able to take on so many projects. It's shocking that you're still also this humble and very friendly person, because a
Oh,
lot of,
thank you.
yes, a lot of, I love that. It's an amazing example that you can be successful and still stay down to earth, right? And connected with the people. You're very humble, but at the same time, you have a lot to say about. It's inspiring. Everything we've been talking about is a true inspiration. It's incredible. And this is going to take me to our next session of the podcast, because all these years and this energy, and we had this conversation last time in our previous conversation, that sometimes we miss other important topic, right? And I wanted to ask you about it. When you run a life where you have goals, and your goal is to hit those goals, and you realize at some point when you try to conceive and start a family that you didn't follow up with your body as much. Do you think that fertility and conception and biological clock is not a subject that is talked about enough?
Yeah, no, and thanks so much for bringing this up. Absolutely. I I'm often asked to speak at like lunch and learns for corporations, and I'll never forget one. This one actually was pretty much 97% men. And then I would say a few women were there. And towards the end, one of the guys, that opened up the Q&A, he asked me, "So, Dr. T, what advice would you give my daughter?" And what professional advice would you give my daughter? And I responded, "Tell her to freeze her eggs." you know, so I was so focused on my career and my businesses and my investments. No one told me that the biological clock for women ticks, that at some point your egg quality goes to a particular point. And I didn't know that. So I just thought, okay, I could do whatever. And we've arrived. And now it's time to start a family. And my husband and I went through so many IVF sessions, and none of the embryos were viable. And it was an emotional journey, because particularly the first time we went through it, so not to be too personal, but why not? I need to open up, right? So that I can be a blessing and my story can be a blessing for others.
Yes.
I have a huge egg reserve. Like if you look in on the ultrasound or what have you, it looks like caviar. But but I'm just being honest. But none of the embryos were viable. And I remember the first time that I had a session. What are they called? A round of IVF. The staff were like, "Oh, it's Easter, it's Easter, it's Easter." So I got this thing like, "Oh my gosh, this is amazing. We can start a family." And then to get the call that none of the embryos were viable, was devastating. I mean, I think I was in the bed and cried for the entire weekend.
My goodness.
And we just don't talk about it. Had I known that I needed to freeze my eggs, prior to my 30s or my mid to late 30s, I would have done it. I probably would have had to eat ramen noodles for a year or so to afford it, but I would have done it. And so I always tell women, as soon as you get that job that you can either pay for it or they cover it, freeze your eggs. If you don't need it, then great. It's like insurance. Donate it to science, or donate them to a family that can't have their own children. But I always tell people they should do that. And so we do have embryos now. They are with an egg donor, not my eggs. And I prayed about it, and God told me that my parents gave me more than just my DNA, that they taught me how to be a global thinker and a compassionate person and a loving person. And so I can leave my legacy in a different way.
Yes.
And so that's I had to get to that point. Now, it still wasn't easy to get there, but I got there, because when you think about my ancestors and all the things that they went through to be here, that means I come from a strong lineage, right? Even if you think, and to be honest, the transatlantic slave trade, like there were many families that died during
Absolutely.
that, and mine didn't. So that's strong. But now when I look at my family tree, here's my name and my DNA stops. So, and that's why, that's one of the reasons why I started Junia. So I just tell every female that I can, freeze your eggs as insurance. And one day the technology will be as such. I mean, they do have like mitochondrial reproductive therapy, not in the US. You have to go international for it. So there are ways, that you can still infuse your DNA, but it's about choice. And there is always this debate on, can a woman have it all? And I think that a woman can have it all. It just might not be all at the same time. And you might have to sacrifice some things, and others later. But, write down your goals and your dreams. And had I written that down, because in my mind I was thinking, oh, yeah, I'll be a mother. I really want to be a mother. But I didn't write it down, and I didn't do the research to know that the time was ticking. So if I can change that trajectory for any other female out there who wants to have a career and be a mother, then I want to shout from the mountaintop, freeze your eggs.
Yes. And this is also why I love your story, and the way we we were talking about your successes, it's I think that it's important because in modern society, this is what matters the most. Since the feminist movement, we're here, waking up every morning to be as good as men.
Mm-hmm.
And in the midst of it all, we forget that we are not. They can reproduce until no age almost.
Right, right.
And this is also why normally they're the provider in nature. Obviously now we've evolved, and I feel that there's not enough room to explain to women exactly what is going to happen to them at a certain age. You see more and more women wanting not wanting children at all, and then all of a sudden around 40 they're like, actually, now I want it. And this comes with financial stability. This comes also with wanting to find the right partner. Sometimes it doesn't happen, as fast as we want. There is a lot that is put on hold because we don't want to replicate what happened to us when we are younger, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or sometimes it's just, once again, you're doing your thing and you don't even think about it because you're just surfing on this wave. And then you reach a point where, like you mentioned, you're ready. And then unfortunately your body is not following up with your intentions. The
Right.
thing is, it's something that everybody should be aware about, but from, like you mentioned, school. This should be taught at school, and women should have the option to still be able to conceive at the age that they want to
Want to.
conceive, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's something that right now is a big topic, and I wanted to ask you also, what are the emotional high and lows in this situation, so any woman who's out there trying can also relate and see how they can overcome this obstacle emotionally.
Yeah, I think that for me, I eventually was able to get over it and be at peace with where we are in our family journey because I had to go back to my spiritual base and whatever that is for whomever, higher being, collateral being, whatever it is, and I had to get there that this is my story and how can I use my story for good for myself, my community, my family, the world. And so that's kind of where I'm. Maybe that's why it happened that way. But there are definitely emotional highs, I mean, and lows. The first is you're pumping yourself with all these hormones.
Mm.
So, anything could have you laugh hysterically or cry just as hysterically. So that's a part of it. And then you have these hopes and dreams, and you just have to wish for the best. I was always raised to be an optimist. So, getting bad news over and over again and being able to accept it was hard. Oh, okay, well, that's just life. That's how God wanted it. But that's different when you're talking about a family and being a mother, and that dream is not happening. I had to then question. There were two times that I questioned my spiritual upbringing. One was when my mother passed away because she passed away very young and I could not understand it. When she was like an angel, a literal angel. And then my family journey in terms of being a mother, I didn't understand it. It's like, I'm such a nice person. I did everything right. Why is this happening?
Yeah.
And so every day I'm learning why, and that is so that I can help others because I'm still going to be a mother. I'm a bonus mom, and we're starting our family now with the embryos. So I will still be a mother, just not in the way that I thought and down the path that I thought. But you just have to have a strong support network because honestly, so many women have. I mean, when we would go to the clinic, it was packed. It was packed. There are
Yes,
so
yes.
many young and old. There were 20-year-olds in there that were, recently married or single but wanted to start a family and were in there. I couldn't believe it. I thought when I first went there it'd be those that were, up to late 30s, early 40s and beyond. But no, there were some young people in there. And also what we don't talk about enough as women is yes, you have a plenty of mothers who have successfully gotten pregnant, had babies, but there were so many miscarriages.
I was going to talk about that too. Yes.
We just don't. I have a friend, she said, Tamara, yes, I'm a mother of two girls, two beautiful girls, but I have been pregnant 6 times. She had 4 miscarriages, and we just don't talk about it. We bear it alone, and we don't have to, because it's a common experience for many of us.
It's absolutely right. I was going to pinpoint that too, that this should be taught at school as well, is that miscarriage is actually part of your journey. It just happens for many and different reasons, and you have to make peace with that. And, sometimes, especially when you're young, you're like, oh, I'm going to be a mother, and there is just this fantasy that everything around it is pure and it's a bliss and it's beautiful and it's easy and it's natural and it's given by the universe itself to you as a present of you being a woman. And it's not true. It's not true. That doesn't make you less a woman, but
Mhm.
there are biological reactions to that interfere sometimes with your plan, and tackling the issue by creating and building and raising awareness is important, is so crucial. I can't believe that in 2025 it's not even part of the curriculum. Uh, it's unbelievable. For men as well, because if they ever want to become fathers, they will want to be able to support their wives at some point
Right.
anyways.
Absolutely. And my hope one day is to have a huge, like, global, I don't know, Zoom video call where we're bringing in college students and telling them about this, and telling them, we're not telling you you have to freeze your eggs. Just think about it and decide what's best for you.
No, you can have this is the option. You can do it if you want it. Yes.
Hmm. And then for all the male listeners out there, I would say every situation, well, not every, many of the situations where my friends have had miscarriages, their partners said, it'll be okay. You're going to be okay. And that's like the worst thing you can say. You should say, we'll get through this, but not you're going to be okay, because there's just so many emotions that go. And in that moment, you don't feel like you're going to be okay.
You're grieving, obviously.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I appreciate the fact that you brought up that point. I think, Tamara, that it's really something that, and I appreciate once again that you're open enough to share that, because this is the kind of conversation I really want to have with my guests, because I know there are a lot of women out there, and you mentioned as young as 20 years old, in any type of, at different points of their lives, and they're not aware of it. And this is what the podcast once again is about. It's just creating awareness. So this is a major power move that we are doing here together. And there is another topic that I wanted to tackle here with you, because this is also pretty major, is the surrogacy. So you took the road of finding a surrogate. Can you tell us more about how you came up with, obviously, you made peace with the fact that this was the way to do it, and also the process and the emotional involvement of choosing that road?
Absolutely. I wish it was a, like, emotional story around surrogacy. It was really emotional about the my eggs versus donor eggs. But surrogacy, quite honestly, I've never wanted to carry. um, to me, people forget that, like, childbirth is a miracle. It's an absolute miracle. This idea of something growing inside of you and then you successfully deliver it is a miracle to me. And I'm the kind of person, I burp and I run to the doctor, because I'm like, oh, what was that? So I never wanted to stress myself during the pregnancy, nor have stressed the baby during the pregnancy. So I'd always intended to have a surrogate. Now, when I was younger, if it would have happened, then of course I would have, taken it to the full term, and that would have been fine. But, since I got to a place where, through entrepreneurship and investments, where I could afford it, then I said, we're going to go that route. And particularly for births with Black women and women of color, the statistics actually show that there are a lot more complications, there's a lot more deaths, etc. And there's a ways to go with getting the same care for women of color than non-women of color.
I've read about it. It's terrible.
And there's research around that, and all of that. I'm not speaking based on my experiences. There is documented evidence-based research around that. And so I decided, and my husband decided, he said, I don't want to be a single father. So we both agreed that surrogacy, and we actually found a surrogate, but then she went through a divorce. And thank goodness she called us and said, I can't do this because I didn't think that I would be this stressed. I thought I could handle it, but it's taken a turn for the worse. And thank God she told us that, because she could have just kept that information. So
Mm.
now we're starting the process again to look for a surrogate, and there are different agencies out there. And I, in no means, want to say that I'm not in touch with everyone, because it is expensive. And so I'm very thankful that we have the resources to have it, because it can't be, for everyone, because it is really, really expensive. But over the years we've saved, and this is something that we decided to do. But that too, but there are plenty of women who are like, oh, you shouldn't, and it's a wonderful experience. And again, it's about choice.
Yeah,
It's about
absolutely.
choice. And
It
I
is.
would say, even in your life strategy, because even the Bible says, without a vision, the people perish. So I believe you have to have a vision for all of your goals. And one would be having a child. Do I want to do it? Do I not want to do it? Okay, if I don't want to do it and use a surrogacy, that requires money. So what's the budget I'm putting together for that? And some people are like, oh, Tamara, you're so business with everything, even your life. Yeah, I am.
Ooh, no, I love you're unapologetic about it. It's wonderful because this, especially around the topic of conception and conceiving and fertility, there is a lot of judgment, and I think it just comes from the fact that it's just the old school mentality, people not coming to terms with the fact that women want to lead different lives now. They want to, they want to, as long as you can put people in the box, you feel safe. So they project their own insecurity on your choice, right? Because if you do this, now what does it mean for what I always believed in? So you're wrecking their worlds in some sort of ways. Obviously, you don't perceive it that way because you're in a very vulnerable place. You're trying to conceive. So this comes to, like an attack towards you, where it's really coming from a place of ignorance. Because if you love the person, you really want them to do what's best for them in general. I love the fact that you also mentioned that you are a bonus mom. Can you tell me more about this?
Yeah. So when I met my husband, he had a father. He was a father. He is a father to a beautiful daughter, Para. And I met her when she was 13, 14 years old. And I'm her bonus mom. She comes to me with, because my thing is, I'm with him and I love him. So if I love him, I gotta love everything that comes with him. You know what I'm saying? So now there are some stuff, I know some people kind of marry in different family situations. You got to decide what you're gonna tolerate or not tolerate. Or certain habits that come along. But I too have habits. We're two adults that have very independent lives that are now coming together. So you have to like sit down and talk through those things. But Para, and I've attended and supported everything she had. I'm not like a stickler. I'm a friend, but she calls me mom. She does call me
Really?
mom.
Oh,
And I'm great friends with her mother because we had to raise her, and there are times when there were topics that had to be talked about, and she would call me so that I could tell him, or we could strategize on how we tell him. And we embraced. We went on family vacations together. She's now almost 30. She has a son now. So I'm actually a Mimi. Believe it or not, I'm a grandma before I'm a mom. And that's totally fine because that's how life is. And I just love him and I want the best for him. And he will, we've worked very hard. He will have the best life, just like she, had the best life. And my thing is, I wanted her life to be better because I was in it.
yes.
What's the point? If her life is going to be the same or worse because I'm in it, then what's the point? And I have friends that have dated and married me, and there's this family conflict. But how can her mother not love me if she knows I love her daughter? So that's kind of how I stepped into it. And then I have my nephew, who is a pistol ball. I love him so much, and I always said that until I have my own, he's mine. And even when I have my own. He will still be mine. He actually looks more like me than my sister anyway. But we do a auntie nephew trip every year. We go somewhere. We snuck in two last year. We go somewhere and he can come to me and talk to me because she's a disciplinarian. Now I have my limits on what I'll accept, but I always want him to be able to talk to me. And when my children will have some entrepreneurial venture to go on, and they'll all be their board of directors. I already have it laid out where they, so even though he'll be maybe 15 or 16 years older than them, but they're going to do it. He can be the board chair and they can be the board members, and everything that my children have or will have, he will also have. And Para will also have. And my grandson will also have. So yes, I know I'm going to be a great mother. I feel it and it comes so natural. And yes, I've been a bonus mom. We don't use step mom. We don't use the word step in anything. It's bonus because a bonus is a blessing. And I'm blessed to have them in my life.
And blessings come in many many different ways, and I love the fact that you actually organize the relationship like a the logistic of a company. It's really getting their feet wet for the future. It's really fun. I love that. I love your approach. I think it's also how we children play. They learn through playing. This should be also part of their routine, like having these games and the things that prepares them for the actual structure of their future employment. So that's really awesome. And you say that you're going to be an amazing mom, and look at what you're doing right now. You created something that was missing, and I did not even think about it. So that was also the remember reading about your bio, and I was like, wait, what? But this is missing. She's right. How come I never thought about it? So let's talk about it now. Tell us what you created and why you created it.
Right. So I am the founder and creator of Junia. It's Junia, or the abbreviation JN. And Junia was born from a simple but profound realization, and that is daughters, even those named after their mothers, had no generational title of honor, unlike sons who've long held the suffix junior. So as I was beginning to deal with, our infertility issues and the fact that my children won't have my DNA, and also kind of still dealing with my mother's passing, I thought, wait a minute, what can I have that's tangible? And so I spoke to my husband and we agreed that we would name our daughter after me. So then I said, okay, well, what's the formal? I'm thinking there's something out there, right? So I'm like, well, what's the formal way to do this? What's the feminine equivalent of junior? And I did all this research and there was nothing. In fact, people don't even know the beginnings of junior. They don't know. Yeah,
I don't.
right. Exactly. And I said, you know what? I want this to be a legacy that I can pass on to my daughter. And so Junia started selfishly as a personal project. And then it has just expanded into this movement because the more people I told, they said, oh my gosh, this needs to be formalized. You mean no one has thought of this? And no one has.
I
And
bet
so,
people were just as stunned as I was. Wait a minute. Yeah, you're right. This should be a thing.
mhm. So I view it as not a name, but a movement. And that's where we are now.
It's a total movement. It's a movement that reinforces also the presence of women in society. And it's insane that we have never even picked on it just because we are in a patriarchal society and we have never, and we are so indoctrinated in the lives and the customs we have that we never question things like that.
Right.
When you talked about it, I thought, it's not even about misogyny. It's literally missing altogether. It's not men who did that against us. They did it for them, and we just missed the boat, and we didn't do it for us. And I'm glad you picked on it and you said, all right, this is gonna be a thing now. And Junia, how did you come up with Junia exactly? The name Junia, the word Junia. Sorry.
So it was rather strategic and a lot of research, but for me, I didn't want something that was so far from junior because when you're creating something that's totally new, there is this shock value. And sometimes the shock value can push people forward, and sometimes it can push people back. So if it was something that was so different, it might not. But Junia, almost, it does kind of sound like Junior in some way, but it's so feminine, and it just speaks to kind of like our having the rightful seat at a generational table, is kind of how I view it. But then also, growing up as a preacher's kid, I do find a lot of inspiration in the Bible, and I don't want this to be like a religious thing, but everything has to start from somewhere. So if you go to Romans 16:7, there is an apostle called Junia there. She's only mentioned in the Bible one time, but she was called an outstanding apostle, which she was in prison for her beliefs. And still she still fought for, I guess, history, if you will. And so I just thought, well, you know what? Junia. It's not any name that's kind of like over materialized or over marketed, etc. A lot of people haven't heard from it. And in fact, because she's only mentioned once, historians have kind of created their own stories about what they think. And that opens the door, for no matter what your name is. If your name after your mother fully, whether it's first and last name or first, middle, and last name, then you can be a Junia. And there are actually 30,000 women in the US that carry their mother's name. It's just not formally a Junia. So we're actually getting some neck medallions made, and they'll be called legacy Junias. And as I find them, we will have a formal ceremony to honor them for being a Junia, even though they're not, formally have Junia on it, because they were the foremothers, if you will, and they will start that legacy.
They can probably change their name, but I love the fact that there is a spiritual ceremony around it, because you need to, this is just, to kind of give the note and the cadence to what's going to happen for, the future generation. And it's a little like being crowned in some sort of ways. I love it.
Yes, and actually, Queen Elizabeth II is considered a Junia. Although she's, of course, I'm not living, but my plan is to go to the royal family and whoever's the closest living one and present them with it. We have Nancy Sinatra. I have a good friend of mine whose husband's mother was named exactly like his grandmother. They both passed away. So when we get them, I'm going to present it to him because he's the closest living one. And if you go to our website, junialegacy.com, there is a declaration of naming rights. There is a certificate. We give an example naming ceremony, and it's only there as an example. You have, similar to a Junia's name, you have to create it however you want to. That means symbolic, that they know that they are continuing the legacy of their mother or their mother's mother or their mother's mother. So yeah, it's just exciting just to know that now this movement is just, I feel sometimes so blessed and honored and surprised and overwhelmed all at once.
I can only imagine. And you talked to us a little bit about the milestones for Junia. Can you tell us more about where you are right now in a legal way?
Yes, sure. So someone asked, well, how are you going to make money off this business? I'm like, this is not a business. This is a movement. Okay. I did not start this to make money. I started it as a movement, something that should have happened many, many centuries ago, actually. But it is formalized under a company, Junia Legacy, because, there are expenses and all of that, and you're taken more seriously if you're formalized. So we have been formalized. We have trademarked it, so we're waiting to hear back from USPTO on that. Like I said, we have the declaration of naming rights. We have a certificate that can be downloaded. We have a naming ceremony. We actually had a photo shoot here about 3 weeks to 4 weeks ago, and we had 9 junior models, mother-daughter models, and it was diverse. I mean, we had every demographic you can imagine, and it was just amazing. If you go to YouTube, We now have over 3,000 subscribers in a very short amount of time. Our videos have been viewed 7,000 and 8,000 times and downloaded, etc. So if you put in Junia Legacy, you'll see that. So one of the models, God bless her, said, you know what? I used to work on the Hill in DC, and I've worked on a lot of feminine movements, etc. I want to help. So we had lunch, and she walked me through the step-by-step process that we need to follow to get it formally approved, which basically means that we're going to need legislative support, like 2 co-sponsors. It then has to go to the committee lead, who would then take it to the House and then the Senate. It probably has to be a part of some omnibus or some larger platform, if you will. And we will need to get a lobbyist that is really successful to help us with this. That type of passing of legislation happens every 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
So I got to figure out where we are in the 2-year time frame. And she said, if it doesn't pass in the first episode, you got to, start in the second 2-year time frame. So we have a journey. We also are about to start a change.org petition because that's helpful. And again, strategy. I think I'm going to start kind of at the city, state level and get signatures and support and letters, then move to the state and then move to the federal. So that way, when we go to the big heavy hitters, we can say we have all of this other support. So it is going to be a long journey and a very expensive journey, but we're gonna get there. So no, it isn't a business, but we also got to figure out, because some people have asked, oh, how do I donate and stuff like that. So I've got to figure that part out. But we're well on our way, and I'm so excited. We personally, my company, I had my team do a scan of all of our systems, particularly if a person's applying for a job, onboarding, and then our HRS system. And of the 3, 1 or 2 of them, Junia can just be added. And then the other one is kind of like a set list of options. So I'm now in conversations after my travel with our vendor to get them to add it, because it has to start at home. So we're making it available for us. And then that way we can tell, the community and the world that, hey, we are living what we're preaching.
Exactly. I was going to say, and for Congress to see concrete example of companies following already and using this suffix really gets them to understand this is not just a simple idea. This is an actual concrete realization of the project. And listen, you got to find some sort of mayor who needs votes.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're like, I'm going to add my followers to, your campaign, and please let it pass. Listen, it's a win-win.
And that is what when she sat down with me, she said, you know what? Given everything that's going on, a lot of people need some wins. So when it's time to vote, they can say, oh, look, we were, to their constituents, we have helped and we're endorsing this and we're passing out. So now is the time. And the energy is definitely there.
That's right.
And then another way that I know that the momentum is building and we're getting support is that everybody whom I've spoken to has something positive to say. So with our models, at least 3 of them said, if I ever have a daughter, I'm making her a Junia. And I'm like, oh my God, that's so sweet. And then I was actually a guest on another podcast, and the podcast host said that when earlier, in her life, her husband, when they started having that family, her husband said, let's name our daughter after you. And she said, no, people will think I'm arrogant or, serving. And what I want to tell people is that, no one gives a second thought when a father names his son after him.
It is true.
It's not like, oh, he's conceited. And it is time for us as women to own our rights, to not be ashamed when we're successful, to not be ashamed when we do stuff that's good, to not be ashamed to name our daughters after us.
It is true.
We should not be in the background any longer. We're talented, we're superwomen, we can do so much. And sometimes we're our own worst enemy because we're like, oh, what will people think? And I shouldn't do that. No, because men don't ask themselves those questions. They just do it. And I mean, just on your podcast alone, you feature so many incredible women, and you will continue to feature so many incredible women. We need to speak up. We need to let people know. And if for nothing else, so that that little girl can see themselves in us and say, if she can do it, I can do it too.
Absolutely. And we talked about it. It was mainly for royalty or maybe aristocracy to give the same name from a mother to a daughter, adding one, two, three after that. We don't need to own a title. Men indeed are now waiting to own a title. This is something you transfer strength, you transfer love, you transfer spirituality
Yes.
and energetic power to your child. And this is all coming from a place of love. It's not coming from, you're not for like so self-serving space or narcissism, absolutely not. But this is just the quality, and I would say also the burden of a woman is double questioning herself all the time, because this is just how we've been raised once again. And movements like Junia gives us permission
Mm-hmm.
to step aside from what we know and move in another direction that feels right for us. And it's unbelievable that you are able to, I would say, use your own legacy, what you want it to be your own legacy, and translate it to the world and to every woman out there. It's unbelievable. And I have no words, honestly, on the fact that you spend time, energy, resources to make this dream happen for all of us.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you so much.
It's
Yes.
incredible. And I know you have a lot on your plate. And it's not like if you were having a lot of free time, you're really doing that out of passion and devotion for the project. We just need way more people like you. I'm really hoping to see Junia being a real concrete realization soon. It should have been done, like you mentioned, a while ago. This is about time that this happens. So if you need anything from anybody, I hope anybody who can help, right, who listens to the podcast, at least, yes.
We have something that says join the movement, and then we have different ways that you can help. If you have ideas we haven't thought of, we need everyone, and that's men and women, women and men, to do this, because for the women, we need our men to help support us in this too. So any way that you can help will be so greatly appreciated. And it will be like, again, without a vision, the people perish. It will be done. I am claiming it. It will be done.
Exactly. So please make sure to, I'm going to link in the description down below, all the links where you can, first of all, visualize the YouTube recording you've done with the models, and just follow your journey. This is what we are recording the podcast today. I wanted you to know the person behind the project, because the project is incredible, but the person behind it is even more.
Oh, thank you, Sarah.
Tamara, tell me something. If you had to give a tip to a young girl out there, beside freezing her eggs, what would it be?
Mm-hmm.
One thing.
The one thing would be to not sit in the shadows. If you have a dream, if you have a passion, make it happen. Reach out to me and we'll figure out how to make it happen. I think sometimes we think about the obstacles. I don't have enough money. I don't have enough time. I don't have a support. I don't have the family that I wanted. Well, create it. But don't sit in the shadows, and be bold. Because there is some new movement. There's some gap you need to fill. You were created for a reason. God created you. And while you're here on this earth, you leave the impact that you need to, and do it. And you wake up every day and you look in that mirror and you said, if not me, then who? And I can do it because I'm beautiful, I'm smart, and just reaffirm yourself over and over again. That's the advice I would give.
That's a beautiful advice, really. I hope it resonates with every young woman out there. It's not just about preaching or saying some cookie type of cutter thing going on. No, it's true. It's powerful, and it's a true message. I love the fact that you're empowering people nonstop.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks
you
so much.
so much, Tamara, for being here today. Thank you very
Sure.
much. Once again, please make sure to connect with Tamara if you are interested in following Junia, but also if you want to be part of it or just provide more resources, get in there. Thank you so much
Thank you
again
so much, Sarah. This has
for
been a
coming.
pleasure. I had so much fun.
Awesome.
And that brings us to the end of today's episode. Until next time, stay bold, stay brilliant, and keep building your own success story. If you loved what you heard, be sure to subscribe, leave a comment, and share this episode with someone who needs to hear it.